Wide receivers were not the brightest position group for FSU last year. From injury issues to issues holding onto the ball, the returners Keyshawn, Helton, and Pokie Wilson have a lot of room for improvement this upcoming year. But they won't be alone. Head coach Mike Norvell added plenty of new talent to take some pressure off of them. Here to discuss these guys with me is none other than my crew from the Triple Option series of videos, Trey Rowland and Adam Brown.
Hey everybody, we're back. Triple Option Position Preview Video 3. We're going to be talking about the wide receivers, the slots, the outsides. We're also going to throw tight end in the mix because our primary tight end, Camren McDonald, basically just kind of like a big wide receiver anyway. Kevin, the guys know the drill by now. Oh, and if you don't, subscribe, YouTube, X's and Knowles, put the notification on. Patreon, like I said, Kevin is looking just poorer and poorer and more disheveled with every video. Please give that poor man some money. He's emaciated and he could use some food. So, Kevin, what do the wide receivers do for Mr. Mike Norvell? I'm just kidding. You look like $1 million.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, wide receivers are more fluid than in a lot of systems. So we've got them listed here as slot and outside, but in reality,
flip and flopping. Both slot guys are going to play outside guys are going to play slot, kind of a mishmash. This is just where we primarily see them lining up the most.
And you'll even see him putting tight ends out as the X receiver on the outside. You know, he's looking for a matchup based off of where he's positioning people. But yeah, this wide receiver group is one of the more important groups. What in his offense, what he's looking for is this one-on-one matchup, either on the outside or on the slot, and he's trying to exploit that through the passing game through vertical passes and aggressive offense. So one of the wide receiver group, Mike Norvell was a wide receiver. They're one of the more fun groups to watch when it comes to his offense. Unfortunately, they weren't one of the more fun groups to watch last year. Just in how versatile they are, how many different arrangements of wide receivers you'll see out there, and just it's a fun group, and it's fun to see how he kind of uses them as chess pieces.
This is one of the groups on the team that makes me a little bit nervous as far as I could see them. They were a big liability last year, which nobody saw coming with Tamori and Terry coming back. And this is a group that has even more question marks than that one did. So this is one, it's big boom or bust potential here, but we'll start with kind of the slot guys first. Adam, Keyshawn, Helton, a guy who really, really overperformed his recruiting ranking expectations at the beginning of the year. Devastating injury and didn't really seem to get it back in 2020. What are we expecting from him this year?
I think another full year removed from that ACL injury, I think is going to do him a world of good. I expect him to be a much more consistent performer this year. I thought that the injury played games with him last year. We saw a lot of uncharacteristic drops. He's not a kid that drops the football a lot, especially in some crucial positions or in situations in games that they had a chance to kind of get back into, and he would put the ball on the ground. So I'm a little bit bullish on the wide receiver group. I think there's more talent here than is being given credit for. And I think it really starts with Keyshawn Helton. I think he's a guy who is a leader for this football team. I expect him to kind of step up into that role this year and be a more consistent presence in this offense out of the slot. But I expect him to line up outside too. I hope he's got that speed back. That's the biggest thing, because he's a smaller guy. But consistency catching the football, get that speed back, and I think he can have a good year.
Okay, good stuff. Do we got any clips of Keyshawn there?
So no clips of Keyshawn right now, but
well, that's fine. Just whatever thing. Adam is a very descriptive speaker, so just like he painted the picture in your mind anyway. Bryan Robinson, this is the guy. Besides Andrew Parchment, the transfer from Kansas, who we're going to get to in a little bit, this is my guy who I think is going to be the breakout star of the wide receiver group. Adam, am I right or stupid? Tell the people.
I don't know if it's fair to say that you're right, but I don't think you're stupid either. He's another player that I'm excited.
All right, now we're talking.
He's another guy. And listen, I take every opportunity to call Trey stupid, okay? So if I'm not taking advantage of it right now, let's just tell you something. Bryan Robinson had a good spring. I think he's a player who is going to predominantly line up in the slot. Mike Norvell likes these guys that he can match up on safeties and and these nickel corners that teams are playing a lot now, and take advantage of them. I think Robinson's got good vertical speed. He's got good consistent hands. He's still learning his route running, which is crucial. But here you see him on a little mesh concept, Kev. Little mesh concept.
Little mesh. Yeah, let's go back to that. Little.
Oh, here we go. You did it now, Adam.
Yeah, you asked for it. Yeah, mesh concept. You've got these two crossers. In zone coverage, they sit in the gaps. In man coverage, they're supposed to kind of rub off each other and kind of set a legal screen for each other. And here, they find the gap in the zone. And
good catch and run, man. Very fluid, very interesting. I'm excited. I like Bryan Robinson.
My hesitation for him is this is only year 2, so he's a player who's still developing, still growing. But here's another shot against a player that everybody knows I'm very high on, Jamie Robinson, down in the red zone. It's gonna just one-on-one. This is what we talk about with Mike Norvell.
Yep.
Getting one-on-ones and winning one-on-ones.
Oh, good catch, good throw too.
Yeah, this is the
good
exact
body control here, good hands.
The exact fade concept I talked about in the quarterback video here.
See that beautiful fade concept.
This is what Mackenzie Milton specializes in, and to have a receiver that's
shoulder
in line
good
with him
ball
will be pretty.
Placement, like you said, the body control to catch, that is nice, and that is very hard to defend route concept when it's executed like that. I think we feel. Like I said, I'm high on Bryan.
Yeah, me too.
High on Bryan, and let's talk about Ja'Kai Douglas.
Ja'Kai Douglas is a player who's probably. Look, he played tailback last year. We'll see. He's supposedly a full-time wide receiver now. Could line up in that tailback position some, depending on how it works itself out depth-wise. He's a burner. He is a vertical, go get him matched up on a safety, post player, let him run as fast as he can, as far as he can, and throw it to him. I mean, that's kind of what his game is, but they need that. So, having a player who can split the safeties and make them be accountable for something is important in this offense and in any offense today. Here you see him on a little quick tunnel screen.
Yeah, they love him in the screen game, it seems.
Yeah, this is going to be the name of his game. He's a running back out at wide receiver. Get him the ball. Let him do his thing.
I like it. And if there's a wide receiver most likely to take a direct handoff in this group, it's Ja'Kai Douglas. Kev, let's move to the guys who we think on the outside. Like we said, again, some of these guys are also going to line up in the slot. Some of the slot guys are going to line up on the outside. Some of the slot guys are going to line up in the backfield. Cats are living with dogs. It's absolute pandemonium. I want to talk about Andrew Parchment.
Me too.
The big acquisition in the transfer portal from Kansas, the University of Kansas football team. Yes, we did get an actual very good transfer player from the University of Kansas. Adam, why is he good?
I don't think he's a guy that people are talking enough about. He's explosive. I mean, he's got good size. He shows capable hands. Every player has drops from that from time to time, but he's a guy that when he had a quarterback at Kansas, he was dynamic. I mean, he was a dynamic player, able to get vertical down the field. We did our scouting report on him. I did one on Tom Hulk Nation. And look at that. That's not something we've seen. We saw that out of Tamori and Terry, except for last year. They need this. They need an explosive player who can win one-on-one on the outside against a team's best corner, and he gives you that. And he gives you some veteran leadership too, which is great. I think he's in his 5th year in college.
Unquestioned number one wide receiver on the team.
Absolutely, in my opinion. And I think I'm very bullish on what I think he's gonna do this year, assuming the O-line plays well and the quarterbacks are capable. I think he's gonna have a big year.
Ontario Pokie, not Pookie Wilson, a solid hand, a guy who's been on the team for a while. Like I said, just kind of we talked a lot about this type of player in the running back video. Solid hand, guy who's going to get it done. I'd like to see him actually for being a solid hand. I'd like to see him be a little bit more consistent than he was last year. To be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair critique, and I think it's not something that's probably ever going to leave his game. He's going to disappear in stretches because he's not special. But who knows? With the Parchment, with some of these other guys kind of coming on, maybe he finds his niche in this offense. But he's a good off of play action post player. He's not going to go out there and dominate or beat guys one-on-one, but you can kind of scheme him open. So we'll see. Got to be able to catch the ball more consistently.
Malik McClain, true freshman, The next two guys we're going to be talking about are true freshmen, but Malik McClain, the fight, the rock fight we had with Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss to get him back into the fold. If it's not I put my breakout guy as Bryan Robinson outside of not excluding Andrew Parchment. I was really thinking about making it this guy, man. Catch radius, height, athleticism. He's going to be a true freshman, but he's going to be a true freshman that's going to make a big impact.
I agree. He's going to have his ups and downs this year because he's a true freshman, but just watch. I mean, I don't even want to talk. Yahtzee.
That's beautiful.
That's exciting for a true freshman in his first spring game. He's probably had 15 practices or whatever. I mean, he's got the ability to get vertical with speed. He's got a big body, long frame, long arms, good hands. He plays the ball like a veteran there, waiting to the last second to get his hands up to try to catch it. Good concentration. He's what you're going to want in a future number one, and I think the staff is really high on him. I'm really high on him. Trey clearly is very high on him. Kev, you got anything to add?
Oh, McClain? No, it seems like he can do it all. He's I'm excited to see some of these pieces with Parchment taking some
of the pressure
attention off of them, right? So maybe Wilson struggles against cornerback number one, but can get a little separation against quarterback number two. McClain can come in there at the end of the game when the cornerbacks are tired and present a wide receiver that's fresh and is potentially a number one receiver next year.
Right, and with the Tamorian Terry last year, that wasn't really the Tamorian Terry of old. There was a myriad of kind of off-field and on-field kind of issues and stuff going on where, understandably and some not understandably, his head wasn't in the game for some of these contests. The Wilsons, the Keyshawn Heltons, those guys had a lot of pressure on them because they didn't have the true number one to kind of give them the open field to operate. This year, I agree with you guys that I do think it's going to be different. Josh Perrell, another true freshman, dependable kid, maybe the most physically mature of all the true freshmen coming into camp. That kid is solid. He's thick. He's very well built. He looked like he was already a college player before he was. I think a good catch and run guy, a guy who's going to catch the ball, maybe not take the top off the defense, but he's going to make tough catches and he's going to run hard, and he's going to open some eyes this year.
I think he reminds me of Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame, if our viewers remember from last year.
Unfortunately, yes.
I mean, just a dynamic kind of H-back, but more of a wide receiver body. I think Josh is going to continue to put some weight on, put some size on. I think he's going to be a really good kind of utility piece for this offense. A guy you can put in the backfield to block some, you can motion him around to block some, and then get him going on play action and let him do his thing.
I agree. And with the tight ends, we're not going to spend too much time on them. Right now, you could tell from the activity that Mike Norvell has done in this group. I don't think he's in love with this room right now. You don't have too many complete tight ends. You've got a guy like a Camren McDonald who can catch well but isn't such a great blocker. And then you've got a big, monstrous mountain of a man like Jordan Wilson who's a great we don't know about his route running, especially coming off that injury. So he's kind of trying to do piecemeal. We don't have a lot of complete tight ends yet. But
Jackson West is coming.
It's a position that Mike Norvell loves to use, and Camren McDonald is going to be the guy that gets all the stats from the tight end room this year, right, guys?
Yeah.
I think Jackson West is pushing him by the end of the year.
Interesting. Okay, I think Jordan Wilson's going to have, and it's different. Jordan Wilson's going to consistently be on the field because of his size and blocking ability.
I agree with that. Right. I expect to see a lot of McDonald and Wilson on the field together. That's what we saw a lot of last year. I expect that they're going to try to do some of that to get certain personnel in the game defensively so that they can try to take advantage of matchups. But I do think Jackson West is a player who's going to be really good. And I am hoping this year, I mean, he came in, he's a very mature player, was only a 3-star recruit, but was really kind of very underrated. Alabama. I think he's got a really bright future at the tight end position. I expect him to be one of those kids that they can split out, but he can also come in and play in line and block. But he's a true freshman, so you don't know. But I have a lot of high hopes for him.
Yep. But then the last name on the list, Kobe Gross, a guy coming in from JUCO, a dude that has a fun relationship right now, shall we say, as a euphemism, with the online portion of the FSU fan base. So he's got a lot to prove. So he's gonna get He's going to get his snaps and he's going to get an opportunity to prove it. It's going to be one of those things where this position is not going to be a strength of the team yet.
Yeah.
Mike Norvell loves to use tight ends to get mismatches. So all of these guys are going to get a chance to shine. And I do think that this unit will be much better than they were last year. No offense to Preston Daniel, who had a sick trick play as a walk-on. A lot of his snaps are going to – they're going to go to players like Jordan Wilson and Gross and Jackson West. So it's going to be better than they were last year. It's still not going to be where Mike Norvell wants it yet. All right, boys, positional grades. Strength, a contributor, solid contributor, or a potential liability. Kevin, you go first.
I would put them at the liability stage still if I had to give one to. I've been very optimistic thus far in my offensive grades, so I've got to have someone that's a liability, and I think it's this group. I think Perrell, McClain might give you some consistency on the bottom end. Parchment kind of gives you a better top end, but this wide receiver group last year was poor. Was probably the worst group on offense, and that takes into account our offensive line. And so I think there's some change and some good change, but I still think that out of all of the groups, it's the one that I trust the least.
I think that's fair. Adam?
No, I think it's fair, but I'm telling you right now, I think it's a strength. I am a believer.
Disagreement.
Yeah, no, I'm a believer. I'm a big Andrew Parchment believer. I watched a lot of his film. I think that kid's got a lot of juice to his game, and I think that makes a big difference for this offense because he's a guy that you can consistently 10 snaps a game count on him to win you a battle. I think that's important.
I think if the wide receivers are a plus, then I have a much more optimistic outcome on the season.
And maybe Adam does. We'll get to it in our season preview.
Yeah, I think McClain's going to make some plays, but he's going to have issues. I think Helton, a year, 2 years, whatever, removed from the ACL, he comes in as a more consistent performer. Pokie Wilson, he is what he is. He's not great. I think that I think Bryan Robinson, like Trey, is going to be kind of the breakout player of the year on offense. So I do think that there's pieces that are going to take the next step. And like Kev said, Mike Norvell was an offensive wide receiver. He played wide receiver in college. He's a wide receiver guy. I think he's going to have invested a lot of time and energy into this position, knowing that he needs it almost the most to make this offense go.
Well, I was going to go liability. I think after listening to Adam, kind of taking a better look at the depth chart, I'm going to do as a solid contributor just because I'm betting a little bit on the talent portion, kind of the top end. A lot of those guys have some room to operate with Andrew Parchment. So I'm going to go for them as a solid contributor. I don't think they're going to be a strength yet. With the, like I said, this is still it was a 3-win roster last year. So a lot of this stuff is variable, but I'll put them as a solid contributor. They're going to have a nice bounce back year. Tell us in the comments and you agree. Pessimistic Kevin, do you think he's right? Optimistic Adam, do you think
this is the first?
Writing on the fence Trey, who's just a big old wuss and won't even come up with a point. Do you agree with me? Are you a fence writer? Tell us in the comments below and tell your friends to subscribe to X's and Knowles YouTube. Go to the Patreon. Give Kevin that sweet, sweet cash. And we'll see you next for an offensive lineman. An interesting and favorite topic of conversation among the Florida State fan base. Keep chopping.